Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first online brekkie event. I'm thrilled to be with you and thank you so much for joining me. This is our first event like this, and so I'm really excited to hear if it's of value for you, if you find it helpful, and if you like the way that we're doing it, this format. My name's Karen Williams. I've been a coach, trainer, and for about 20 years, and I now recently also do some speaking and some writing. So thank you for allowing me into your homes or wherever you are today, this morning. You might be at the kitchen bench having a cup of tea, you might be still in your PJs in bed, or you might be out for a walk. Wherever you are, I'm thrilled to be with you and thank you for connecting. I'd love to hear who's on the call, and if you'd like to type in the chat box. So on the right hand side there'll be a chat box, so if you'd like to share with me who you are and where you're from, I'd love to know who's with me this morning. So if I look on the side there, it's because I'm reading the comments of who's here. So just want to let you know that if you see my eyes go around the room, that's where I'm going. So good morning to Lorraine, to Rachel. Thank you for joining us, Georgina. Thank you, Tina. Hi, Rachel. Another Rachel, Sue. Kat, thank you so much for joining us. Carolyn, Catherine, amazing. I'm really, hi. Yep, I love the fact that you're here. Thank you so much. And so my intention for today is to talk about how to manage our mindset in this unfamiliar, uncertain, and often for many people unprecedented times. How do we manage our mindset when everything around us is uncertain, and when we might be fearful, we might be worried about what's going to happen in the future, how long this is going to be for? How do we manage our mindset? How do we stay stable on the inside, even though things don't feel so stable on the outside? How do we create space in our mind so there's still space for real connection, even though we're worried or concerned, or we might be internalizing some of our fear and putting on a brave front for everyone else? So those are the things I'd like to share with you, what I've learned over my 20 years as a coach, some tools and some insights, and hopefully maybe answer some of your questions. If you've got some specific questions I can answer, I'll be happy to do that as well. Who else has joined us? Debbie. Hello, Vicky from across the way in New Zealand. Good morning. Good morning, Jess. Hello, Joan. So beautiful to see you. Jerry, thank you so much for being here. I've been really humbled and really excited by people responding to the invitation to connect this morning. Excited because it tells me that people are, you are, and I am looking for ways to connect. We're probably a week or so into this lockdown, and what does that feel like for you? Some of us are feeling hopeful through the conversations that I've had over the last few weeks. Some of us are feeling hopeful. Some of us are feeling really worried. Some of us are so uncertain about what the future holds because we might have lost our job. We might have been stood down. We might be wondering, how am I going to pay the mortgage and the bills? How am I going to provide for my family? So those things are all such palpable concerns at the moment, aren't they? And I don't profess to have any of the answers around how do we control our circumstances, because what I've discovered over my time, and maybe you have too, is that trying to control our external circumstances or the things happening around us can be exhausting and tiring and often not very effective. And so what I've discovered over time through my own journey in coaching hundreds and hundreds of people is that if we can work on what's going on inside of ourselves, no matter what's going on around us, then we can actually feel free even though we're locked down. And that's the thing that I want to share with you today. So who else have we got? Anne, welcome, thank you. Amazing, Jenny, thank you. Camilla, thank you so much for being here. And so as we go through today, I want to share with you my 3 intentions. I have some notes that I'll be referring to just to keep myself on track. And because we've got a short period of time, an hour this morning, I want to make sure that I give you as much value as possible. So the 3 intentions that I have this morning are for you to gain some new insights for yourself. So if you haven't got a journal or a piece of paper or pen, I encourage you to grab that now. Because if you've done some work with me, and some of you on the call will have worked with me either in coaching one-on-one or in a team program, you'll know that I'm a big advocate for taking lots of notes, not only about what you're hearing, but also what's coming up for you as you listen. So your reflections or your insights about how you might implement what we're sharing and what we're talking about today, capture those things in your journal or on a piece of paper somewhere. Just grab something from the kitchen or off the fridge so that you can take some key notes, even just some key points for yourself. It will make it even more meaningful and personal for your life. So that's one of the key intentions. The other key intention for me is that you have this space just to be, just to take a deep breath and to know that where you are right now is perfect, even though it might feel the complete opposite to that. You can just give yourself some time to just be. As human beings, especially in high stress situations, we're used to living in our head and our chest. So we'll breathe from here and we'll project manage to the inch of our lives, all of our lives, whether that's our work, our children, our family, and our situation. And of course, that's valid. We need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our family. But there are times that we need to come back into our hearts and into our deeper breath to sustain and refresh ourselves. And refreshing is one of the things that I'll be talking about today, because that's one of the key things that we need to make sure that we're doing so that we can sustain this period going forward. I heard Scott Morrison say yesterday or last night on a playback, I think, that he's, projecting this into at least 6 months. And we've only just gotten started with the lockdown. We don't know how long that's going to be for. But this current situation that we're in, he's saying, and people are talking about at least 6 months. So we're in for the long haul, aren't we? And so we need to be able to refresh ourselves, not only externally in our physical body, but also internally, because that's what's going to have you feel like you can make your way through this and not just survive it, but even maybe potentially thrive through it. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. And the last intention is that you walk away with some real tools and things to implement that you haven't maybe tried before. So there's 2 ways to listen or to engage today. I'll just say hello to who else. Hello, yes, hi Jess, another Jess, thank you. Alicia, lovely to see you. Sonia, thank you for joining us. I want to share with you, there's 2 ways that you might listen or take in the information today. The first is to, and I do this too, is to, do I agree with this, do I not? Have I heard this before, have I not? And that can be, somewhat valid and also somewhat useful, but it doesn't allow all the learning in. So I invite you to just maybe lift that off and put that aside for a moment, your thoughts and opinions and judgments and assessments of yourself, of me, of this situation, and see if you can open up your listening a little bit more to what might be possible for you out of this conversation. What do you want to walk away with? The other way to listen is to be really open and engaged and just let it all in. Just soak it all in, just say, I'm going to take it all in right now and I'm going to analyse it later and just take lots of minutes. So that's your choice, and I invite you to step into that, whatever works for you. Session. The first one is one of the things that I'm talking a lot to leaders about at the moment is content versus conversation. And so at the moment, as you may have experienced, I have too, there's a lot of content available to us, really valuable content. And so it's about being discerning, isn't it, about what we let in. And so today I want to balance that. I want to balance content with conversation and give you the opportunity for us to have a conversation. And what that might mean is you typing a question in the question and answer box. So I'm going to open the question and answer box and I'm going to put it to the side so I can see when you ask a question, and then I'll come to it and see if I can answer it for you. So let me just put that together. So if you have a question this morning, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You might like to just type in a specific question. So where you've been typing your names in the chat box, hi Jenny, you might like to think, okay, I've got a specific question I'd like to put forward. I'd like to ask Karen here. I'm the only person that can see those questions, I think. I'm still working this out too. So please feel free to pop your question in the Q&A box and I'll answer it. So that's the balance that I encourage leaders, and also with your family. The delivery of content. So let's update people. Let's try and tell them how things are going to be okay. That's all content. But what about conversation? Let's have a rich, open, honest conversation. No, we don't have all the answers. No one does. Yes, that feels scary. Yes, it's uncertain. And now, who do we want to be? Right now, I might be sad. Right now, I might be feeling scared. Right now, I might be inspired. And all of those things are perfectly okay. And so if we can allow that for ourselves and allow it for each other, that makes for a rich conversation. And a conversation that lets everyone be how they are, not trying to fix or change. If you've ever had anyone try and fix or change you, you know that that doesn't feel so good, especially in times like this. If I'm upset, I just want to be upset for a few minutes. There's an amazing article in the Harvard Business Review around grief, and it was beautifully articulated, and I've posted it on my LinkedIn profile and also on Facebook, I think. But one of the distinctions is just let me be sad for 5 minutes and then I'll be back. But you might need to take some of that time for yourself over the next 6 months. Go, you know what, I just need some space. I just need to be unhappy, or I just need to be frustrated, or I just need to be really angry right now. I'll be back. And even maybe let people see your anger and let them know that it's okay for them to feel that way too. So I have some questions coming in. Yeah, great question, Julie. How do you stop your mind from over catastrophizing? And I will share some things about that. Firstly, though, I'd like to say really be discerning. It's one of the words that I learned in my journey is how to be discerning. I didn't even know what that word meant about 10 years ago. Be really discerning about what you let in. There'll be such a plethora of information available to you. And sometimes we can think that we need to grab it from every source to be updated. But you'll need to be discerning about what you let in. So for me, as an example, I let in the updates from the Prime Minister and the Premier, and a little bit of the news, and that's it. I don't scroll social media through the day for that purpose. I don't try and get updates from other areas or people who aren't experts in what's actually happening about what I need to know about to take care of myself and my family. So that's one way to be discerning, to not be over catastrophizing, and I'll also answer more about that later. Thank you, Julie. Vicky, how do we manage the feeling of being controlled? Really great question. So feeling like our freedom's been taken away. And one of the distinctions I want to share with you today is the freedom is an inside job, actually. We think it's an outside job until we know differently. Now, this might sound cliche, it might sound, you've heard this before and we see this on self-help, but it's actually, I've proven to myself it's true, which is why I can talk to you about it now. And I'll share with you how a bit later on the webcast today, but it's really an inside job. So you might have heard Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, or Nelson Mandela on being locked away. What does that mean though about my mindset? And so this is where meditation comes in handy. This is where journaling comes in handy. And I don't mean meditation sitting down like a monk and meditating for an hour. It could be 5 minutes twice a day. That will help you feel differently on the inside, but I'll talk more about that later. And no more questions for the moment, except for one. Hi, Tracy. So who else is here? Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. From Jennifer. Hello. Madonna, Madeline, Kermandy, hello, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. So we have about 100 people on the webcast right now, and why that's important is because it tells me that we are looking to connect. We are looking for a place to just be, and actually not be perfect and not have it all together and not have it all handled, and I certainly don't. So this is, hopefully you'll feel today that that's okay, and also to walk away with some tools. So that's the content versus conversation. So grab your journal and your pen if you don't have that already, so that you can take some notes and reflect on them later, because at the end I'll be asking you, and even maybe before the end, to take some notes on, so what now, what's going to be different that we spent this time together. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that at the end, so that you can put some actions in place around what's going to be meaningful for you going forward. Okay, so I want you to know what this session isn't. This isn't positive thinking, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This isn't trying to pump you up. This isn't motivation. This isn't ignorance either, or head in the clouds, and it's not avoidance. And it's certainly not telling you what I think you should do. This is about the dance of being human. And what I mean by that is having our eye on what we want to focus on, and we choose what we want to focus on because of how it makes us feel. So we've got to tune into that, and we'll talk about that. And allowing space for our feelings. So it's this dance. It's probably I think it's probably the most challenging dance of being human, which is, what do I want to focus on? What's the future I'm choosing to live into? So you might like to write that down. What's the future I'm choosing to live into? Because that if we, whatever we're focusing on is going to have us feel a certain way. And why it feels at the moment, why it can feel like it's a catastrophe or a crisis, is because of what we're letting into our mind, but also what we're choosing to focus on. We may think that we don't have a choice in this situation, and that can feel really real. But hopefully by the end of this session today, you'll see some light around, maybe I do have a choice about what I focus on. So the dance of being human, this is what this is about today. It's not about self-motivation or me trying to pump you up. It's about self-inspiration, but it's about the dance of being human. So that dance between focus and feeling. So how can I focus on what I want, but I also allow space for feeling sad, upset, inspired, hopeful, angry, the vast array of emotions that we have. Because if we don't give space to our feelings, which is what we're really good at, we're really good, even in not a crisis, is living from the neck up. We're really good at avoiding being distracted from what we feel. And so why it can feel quite tense at the moment, we might think it's because we're locked in a home with 3 or 4 other people, but actually it's really because this situation is challenging us, maybe not intentionally, but challenging us to face the things in ourselves that maybe we've been running from before. Yeah? And so maybe we distract ourselves with a vast array of things that I talk to my coaching clients about and people that I work with in groups, and certainly it's been true for me. We numb ourselves through food, maybe through alcohol, through drugs, through unconscious behaviours, through shopping, through scrolling online. There's workaholics, if you've ever heard that term. I've been known to be that in the past. All of those things that keep our feelings kind of at bay. And now in this situation, we don't have much of a choice around that, do we? We're up against ourselves. It's almost like the mirror has been brought right into here and we're looking at ourselves. And it feels like it's because of everyone else is in close proximity, but it's actually because we're coming up against ourselves. So we don't have as many distractions around us, and that's what's going to be challenging for us. So that's why this conversation is about that dance, focus and feeling. So that can be really uncomfortable, but I'm hoping by the end of this conversation that you'll feel a little bit more comfortable around that. So, hello Janelle, lovely to see you, or not see you, but be with you. Who else do we have? Yes, thank you, Laura. Madeline, thank you. Hello, Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. All right, so hopefully you've got your pen and paper. If you haven't got that, grab it now. I'm going to share with you, it's about 3 days into our world changing, which was a couple of weeks ago. And I was feeling kind of locked inside, a bit unsure but uncertain, but trying to figure out what I should do. How do I navigate the situation? What does that mean for me, my family, my business, my livelihood? And there was so many things going on in my mind, and maybe that's true for you then and maybe even now as well. And possibly it will be true for all of us going forward over the next 6 months or so. But at the time, I was grappling with how to find my steady ship inside that world that just changed overnight almost, it felt like, didn't it? It certainly did for me. And through that few days, I felt stuck. I wasn't finding any clarity. I was feeling a bit frustrated and trying to actually feel on top of it for everyone else's benefit, I guess, but also because I didn't know what I was facing. And then I read the article that I mentioned to you earlier, which was the HBR article around grief. And when I read that, I had this feeling of relief. It just felt like this weight had been taken off my shoulders just for a moment, because I felt that someone had really gotten me. I felt understood when before I was kind of misunderstanding myself. And I felt that I was understanding myself in better ways. And it just created some space. New clarity came through, new awareness of myself, of maybe what I was trying to do, which was trying to be okay and pretending I was okay. And I allowed myself to have a bit of a cry. I allowed myself for a few days not to be okay. And then through that process, as I shared with you a little bit earlier, through that process of just allowing space and taking a few deep breaths and continuing my meditation practices and a few other things, I was able to reconnect with, okay, what's actually required from me going forward. I don't need to rush. I don't need to force. I don't need to come down on myself because I'm not fully prepared for this situation that none of us could really be prepared for. But I noticed how much self-judgment was going on. I should be more prepared for this. I should have planned ahead 12 months. I should have more money in the bank. I should have more food in the cupboard. You know, there's a lot of things that I was blaming myself about that I didn't know over those few days. Now, those feelings still come up. Those thoughts still come up. But with this practice of allowing space for what's true for us right now, we can move through it more quickly. There's a myth for us human beings that we think that if we allow space for our feelings or actually acknowledge it, and this is very true, especially for men and for women as well, but I've heard it a lot from men over the years, is if we don't give space to our feelings, or if we do give space for our feelings, we'll be stuck with those feelings. It's actually the opposite is true. If we give space to our feelings, they move through, they release, they disappear really, and then we can evolve through into more self-awareness, more inner inspiration, more clarity. So it's the giving space to our feelings. Now it requires courage, it can be pretty tough. Brené Brown's work speaks beautifully to this, so you might like to read some of her books while you're working out or going for a walk or have some time over these next few months. So that's really important distinction here, and if you'd like to write that down, the myth is that if we give space to our feelings, that we'll be stuck with them then. And actually the opposite is true. So I'm keen to hear if this is helpful for you, if you have any other questions at the moment, and just to make sure that this is on track for you. So Jasmine has a question. How do you let someone just be in their feelings? What does that conversation look like? Beautiful question. So I hope a little bit of that helped you, but I will answer the last piece of that question, which is what does that conversation look like? So if it's for team members, let's say, and then we can talk about family. But if it's for team, it can sound something like, if we're giving space to our feelings, it can sound something like, I'm feeling a little bit uncertain today. How are you feeling? Or, yesterday I had a challenging day and I was up and down a bit. What I found really worked for me was just stopping, getting some sun, having a big glass of water and taking a few deep breaths. What do you think might support you today? So when your team or people around you can see you role modeling and can feel you actually being that way, they'll feel that energy in you, because as human beings, we're energetic beings. We think it's all about our words, but if we look at the be, do, have model, which is an ontological model, something I learned about 2 decades ago in the start of my coaching career, be, do, have. So if we focus on who we're being, our state of being, Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it our thoughts and our feelings make up our state of being. So if we focus on who we're being in a moment, then the words that we say will be perfect, will be exactly what's required in that moment. Us human beings get caught up in saying the right thing. So often when I'm coaching leaders, they'll be wanting to get the words right, when actually when we come back to work on who we're being, then the words come naturally, and it happens each time, every time. And those who I'm coaching surprise themselves because like, wow, those words, I don't know where they came from, but it came from being present and being aware of who I'm being in the moment. And as I said, our state of being is made up of our thoughts and our feelings. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So that conversation is really about, Jasmine, is about presence, is about the quality of our listening and our willingness to be real. So those 3 things you might like to write down. So our presence, the quality of our listening. Usually we're listening to respond, aren't we? We're waiting for the other person to stop talking so that we can say what we need to say or ask what we need to ask or project our opinion into the conversation. And it's very true in this situation too, that we're all doing a lot of talking, a lot of listening, but a lot of us aren't really listening in the way that makes the difference. So listening is about listening to ourselves as much as it is about listening to others. So if we can be present and cultivate, practice the quality of our listening and then ask those high quality questions. High quality questions in my world start with what or how. So what's happening for you? Talk to me about that today. How do you feel about the current situation, and how would you like to help us navigate this together? One of the common questions we're asking each other at the moment is, how are you or how do you feel? Great question. But if you ask him that question, just be aware of where your energy is at the time. And if you can take a moment and take a breath first and then ask that question, the person that's with you will feel a lot differently and feel like there's space to actually share what's true for them. And you'll be contributing so much to that person just by giving them a bit extra space. Jennifer's got a question. Glad I'm not the only one who had those things going through my head totally. And that's why I'm thrilled with people saying, yes, this would be helpful today, because I'm like, I'm not the only one either. There's so many people going through what we're all going through. And as I said, and I'm sure you are, having conversations with people all the time about what we're feeling. So I've got some questions coming through the chat box, which is all good. So Anne's asking, for how long do we give space? If that other person is dwelling on feelings 24, what's the best action we can take? And this can be true for our relationship with our children too, or our team, can't it? Want to fix it for them or make it better for them, so we give them space. How long is long enough? My answer to that is come back to self and go, what can I role model here? Who can I be to demonstrate what's possible in this situation? And when we care so much about others, especially our family, that can be hard to take our attention off them, can't it? It's definitely a practice and a discipline around self-awareness and managing our own energy and coming back to be, do, have. And so I've got my trusty whiteboard behind me, which if anyone, and many of you have worked with me before, you'll know that I love a whiteboard, and it's because it helps me think as well. So be, do, have. Yeah, so be, who am I being? So feeling, what am I feeling? And what are my thoughts? So if we can focus on managing our state of being, I promise you that it's going to make a difference to those that you're in lockdown with at the moment, whether that's physically with your family or virtually with your team and your organisation. This is the most important thing, because this, which is our words and our actions, will be fed from that. Usually as human beings, we start with, well, what do I need to do? What's the right thing to say and do in the moment so that I can have what I need to have, so that I can be who I need to be? Yep. But actually we've got it backwards. We need to start here. So there's a lot of work around this in the ontological world. Again, Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks beautifully to this. He's a neuroscientist. His work is the combination of neuroplasticity, quantum physics and neuroscience and epigenetics and a few other things. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is a fantastic book that you might like to start with. So who we're being is really important. I hope that helps, Anne. So how do you get balance? So this is from Camilla. How do you get the balance right with work if things aren't moving the way you hope and feel like it is a result of what you are doing at the wider economic situation? Yes, absolutely. It's natural to think, well, because of this situation, this is what's going on for me in my health, in my work, in my relationships. Absolutely, that's valid. And we still get to choose. We get to choose what we focus on. So you would have heard the saying, what we focus on grows, or where we put our energy, that's what expands. So it's really important to understand that, and it's one thing that us human beings haven't learned. And so maybe this might be one of those things that happens for us that helps us understand that we have a choice. And certainly the new generations coming through will understand this a lot more quickly than certainly I did in my generation. And so it's about knowing that you do have a choice about where we focus and what thoughts we think. Yeah. So let me get back to your question, Camilla. So with things going on around us, how do we get the balance right with work? So when you say balance right with work, I don't know if you mean how much time do I spend working and how much time do I spend at home, kind of in home with my family. If that's the question, then healthy boundaries are really important. Easy to say, not easy to do, I know. But find a place, some space where you can have some time out. One of my mentors shares, just finding that alone space, whether that's in the garden or at home. But maybe, Camilla, give me a little bit more around your question so I can add value for you, and then I'm making sure that I do answer what you need. But the balance between, I know I'm talking to a lot of leaders at the moment who are working almost, crazy hours because they're at home and they're just working. They're not getting up and even having a shower. I've been there. 1 or 2 days is okay, but after that, you've got to have a shower. But it's a discipline, isn't it? And it's setting some ground rules, what I would call ground rules, or managing our expectations with each other. One of the things us human beings are really bad at is expressing our expectations. So for example, my expectations of you are this. You can actually say those words. Here are my expectations of you. I would love to know if this is if I'm on the right track. Are these okay, these expectations? Do these work for you? What are your expectations of me? If you have those conversations with your family, with your team, that makes everything explicit, and that we can understand what each other needs, and we can talk about whether we feel like we can meet those expectations or not. If I ask someone if these are the expectations I have, and they say, well, look, I can do this, but I can't do that, can we talk about that one? That then makes us be on the same page, doesn't it? And so one of the things that human beings trip up on all the time is silent expectations. So one of the things that I say is silent expectations are performance poison. And what I mean by that is usually in teams and with leaders in teams, we don't explicitly say our expectations. We assume expectations, and we assume people understand. We've got our job description. We know what we should be doing, should be working hard and getting a result. It's not enough. We need to be explicit in our expectations. Silent expectations are performance poison. That relates to family as well. Okay, so I've got lots and lots of questions coming in. I will see if I can answer one or two more, and then I will get back on track. Not that we're not on track. Presence. Thank you, Robin. Presence, quality of listening, and high quality questions. If you just do those three things and nothing else, your life, as in all of our life, will shift. And when leaders do this, who work with me, that it shifts in a moment for them, and they can't believe, they are very surprised, like magic, what happens for the other person, their team, or even in their intimate relationships. So presence, quality of listening, high quality questions. Okay, Robin says thank you. All right, so I'm going to come back to your questions in a sec. So I want to give you the distinction around reaction. So when things happen for us, which are happening at the moment, we'll react, won't we? And we've heard before, it's how we react or how we respond that matters. Yeah, we all know that, but not as easy when we're in the moment, we're in our heightened feeling of frustration or despair or upset or anger or feeling hopeless. It's not as easy then, is it, to understand, well, okay, well, now I'll choose my reaction. Usually we've just got to follow that spiral downwards until we come out the outside and then reflect later. And that's okay too, because we're building a self-awareness muscle. I want to give you, though, when we're in reaction, it's usually what's happening is we're judging others. So we're judging how they're showing up or what they're doing or not doing and what we think they should or shouldn't be doing. Yeah, and so we're putting our expectations on them without saying what those expectations are, or we're judging ourselves. So coming back to perfectionism, we're putting really high standards on ourselves, which I'm all into excellence. But perfectionism, as Brené Brown and Oprah talked about, if you've seen that video clip on YouTube, is, and so if you just Google Brené Brown and Oprah, perfectionism, you'll find it. And they talk about how perfectionism isn't about healthy striving or healthy excellence, I would call it. Perfectionism is we're setting ourselves up to feel really bad about ourselves. And so when we're reacting, it's usually we're judging ourselves or judging someone else. So what I want to give you, though, is if we can, instead of react and judge, if we can react and feel, that's going to allow that freedom that I mentioned before inside of ourselves rather than waiting for the freedom outside of ourselves. Because it's easy at the moment, isn't it, for us to go, okay, well, we're not free. We'll wait for lockdown to finish to feel free again. Or we'll wait for the disease or the virus to actually leave us before we feel free again. We could be waiting a long time. And I'm not into surviving life no matter the circumstances. I made a decision for myself a long time ago through my own health journey and my own challenges through life, you know, the roller coaster and the wake-up calls, to choose my own focus, to understand in any circumstance I have the option in what I focus on and how I feel. And so when we're reacting, we get the chance to judge or we get the chance to feel and connect with ourselves. So that's what I want to give you. I'm going to rub this off. 1 minute, sorry, or 1 second. As I said, I'm still working this out. So I want to give you, grab your pen and journal. I want to give you something here. Let me see if there's other questions coming through. Camilla has got a question. Camilla, balance and blame on what is happening at work. Okay, cool. So yes, so this might help you with that. So reacting, am I going to go into blame, which is a below the line, what I would call a below the line reaction, or am I going to go into feeling and giving myself a space, which is an above the line reaction? So let's say here's your reaction. We could go into judgment. You might like to write this down, judgment. Or we can go into a feeling space, yeah? And this is what I would call compassion. So in that moment, we have the choice to blame, yeah, and to judge, or we have the choice to actually be present in our feelings. Go, okay, you know, I'm feeling really frustrated and angry right now. What is it that I need? Do I need a break? Do I need to breathe? Do I just need to take a moment? Not easy. I'm not saying this work is easy at all. And I was speaking with a leader yesterday who has been doing amazing work over the last 6 months. So inspired by him. And he's a leader of a big group of people in the construction industry. And he was sharing how he's, you know, one of the things that he's done in the last couple of weeks is that he's fallen off. So what's he, in his words, fallen off the track. And so this self-awareness work, as we become more self-aware, can feel like actually that we're doing worse. But it's only because we're committed to a compassionate journey, right? Which means that we can have different kinds of conversations. We can have accountability conversations with empathy and build trust. Yeah. So yes, it's a practice, but as we practice, we build the muscle and we get better at it. So we can either go into judgment or go into compassion. I'll get my notes on this so that I can give you exactly what I want to give you. And if we go into judgment, then we go into feeling, this is what I did, feeling worried. Just making sure you can see that. So if we go into judgment and suppressing our feelings, then we go into worry and we internalize our feelings. Now, I know that many of you, for whatever reason, would be internalizing your feelings because you want to put on a brave face for the kids, because you would need to put on a brave face for your team. You want to make sure that everyone else is taken care of. We have a lot of people I know that I work with, as well as in the world, that are high nurturers that want to make sure everyone else is okay. And it's very strong for mothers or for women who have that strong nurturing energy. And all of us do have that to some degree. So, but what happens is we internalize the worry. That's not good for us. It can become very impactful negatively on our body and our health and our well-being. So, but what happens is then we go to disconnected. So when we're worried, we become a little bit disconnected. So do you know that feeling when I'm fine, everything's fine. When someone asks, how are you? I'm fine, okay, I'm good. Yeah. Now that's all good, but can you feel a bit of disconnection in that? We might be putting on a brave face because we don't want to collapse and fall apart. But we don't have to do one or the other. There's actually this space in between where we can give space to our feelings. We go, you know what, I'm not okay today, but I'm making choices that are going to take care of me and my family, and we're going to be okay. That's a space where we can allow for our truth, and that helps us build this muscle of self-awareness that helps us able to thrive through this process rather than just survive it. Because the danger is if we focus only on surviving this situation, we're going to collapse at the end, or we're going to burn out beforehand. So as I said before, we've got a long haul ahead of us. It's not just a 1 week or two. And sometimes that uncertainty can make it even more challenging when we don't know the end of it, right? It can be even more frightening. But we can, if we come back to presence and listening, we can manage ourselves and our well-being through this. So we go to disconnected. And then what I would say is we go to paralysed. So that feeling of feeling stuck, like I shared with you earlier, that feeling of almost like tension on the inside, and then looping, kind of just going by rote and getting, feeling like we're just doing the same thing over and over again, but not feeling at all like we're present in our body or connected in our heart or actually present with the people in our lives. So that's one way of reacting. The other way of reacting, as I said, is in feeling. So if we go in feeling, what happens then is we become expansive. So I just want you to take a moment right now and take a breath. Just take a few deep breaths and you'll feel what it feels like to expand. You'll feel what it feels like to actually be bigger. You allow your attention to come out of your head a little bit and into your heart. That space there, we feel more grounded, we feel more open, we feel more available, not only to ourselves, but other people will feel that in us. That's the space from which we build trust. That's the space from which we offer certainty. In this, if this is the only thing that you get this morning, this is really important. Because so many questions have been asked over the last couple of weeks is, with all the uncertainty, how do I deal with this? But there's something us human beings don't really know that I want to give you right now, and I want you to feel, is that you can bring certainty and stability on the inside without anything needing to change on the outside. If you just take a few deep breaths, give yourself permission to be here with you, people will feel that. They'll trust it. They don't expect you to have everything sorted, your family or your team or organisation. They don't expect you to have all the answers. What they're looking to you for, even though they might be asking you for answers, and this is an important distinction, they'll be asking you for answers, but what they're really asking for is some stability. And if they can feel that in your energy, they'll stop asking you those questions. They'll stop asking you, when is this going to be over? When is this going to change? What happens if this happens? What if it... They'll stop asking you those questions if you can bring a different quality of energy to your conversations and interactions. So if you can feel that shift within you right now, then that's the feeling of certainty that they will connect with. And it won't matter that you don't know anything else. So that's really important. That's something I want you to get today. So if you can feel that feeling of expansion and connection, that then is about connection, and that then is about freedom. And freedom then is about, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, because in that space inside yourself, like I shared with you those mentors earlier, have shared about when they were locked away, and they've written books about it. Nelson Mandela, Viktor Frankl, written books about what it's like to manage ourselves within within environment that may not be conducive to what we might call freedom. So if we can cultivate, practice that within ourselves, that's what's going to offer not only you, but your family and your team and organisation a whole different perspective. So I'd love to know if that's helpful. Okay, so someone said I just answered their questions. Fantastic. I've got lots and lots and lots of questions here, and I apologise if I don't get your question today, but I'm going to look at the next one. Okay, cool. Thank you, Tina. That's great. Yes, BBB, absolutely. Anne, thank you. What else have I got? By truly giving space, will it be a natural, so this is from Anne, by truly giving space, will it be a natural progression? You may have just answered me. Maybe more present that person. Yeah. A lot of the time because we care so much, we want to hurry people along to feeling better. I don't know if you ever experienced that for yourself, or if you're doing that maybe with others, your team or your family. It's okay to let them be where they are. Like we said, if we allow people to have feelings, they're not going to get stuck with those feelings. We think that they're going to stay stuck, but it's because we're trying to force them out of their feelings that we resist naturally. Just let me be upset for 5 minutes. And then as human beings want to rise to the surface, the natural state of human being is to rise to the surface, like a cork bobbing to the surface of the water. That's our natural state. If we can allow space for who we are in the moment, we'll naturally rise back to that state. That's true for you, that's true for your team and your family. Okay, what other questions do I have? Thank you, I've got more questions. As a leader, is it okay to be vulnerable? I don't want to appear weak. Such an important question. Vulnerability, and the most powerful language around vulnerability that I've heard is from Brené Brown, and she says, vulnerability is the first thing I want to see in you because it inspires me. You think of someone you've heard be vulnerable. Like I shared with you my grief story about feeling upset and sad and really not having it all together, and then feeling and being a coach in this stuff, and then reading someone else's work and going, yeah, that brought me some relief. Yeah, for me, that was a feeling of vulnerability, feeling of being real. So we want to see, so Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the first thing I want to see in you because it inspires me, it draws me in, it builds trust with me. But it's the last thing I want to show you in me because I think that's weakness. It's strength in you, but it's weakness in me. How does that work? It's just because of the beliefs that we've developed that tell us that vulnerability is weakness. So I don't always use the word vulnerability. I use the word openness, because vulnerability can be quite a jarring word, and it's a concept, but what does it actually feel like? So if we can use the word openness, sometimes that's more accessible as well. So I hope that that helps. Yes. And so to answer succinctly, yes, vulnerability/openness in leadership, absolutely. But there's a distinction here. Vulnerability is not oversharing. They're two very different things. So for leaders and even mums and dads, I would say, yes, be vulnerable, be open, but from a place of your groundedness and your own certainty within, by connecting with yourself through the work that we're doing today. Take a few deep breaths. You know, I'm feeling really out of control today, and I'm not really sure how to work through this, but you know, if I can just stop for a moment, I think I'm gonna be able to work that out. So you don't have to be okay. You don't have to have it all handled. But if you can be present with yourself and offer that space, other people go, you know what, I don't have it handled either. But you look okay by not having it all handled. Now maybe I can be okay in that space too. Because none of us have all the answers. So I hope that helps. Other questions? Lots and lots of questions. Let me see, what have I got for time? All right, 20 past. I have to keep going, but I'm going to come back to some questions as well. So there's one thing I want to give you now that I said to you I'd give you a new tool today. So I'm going to give you a new tool, and this is what it's going to be. So new piece of paper in your journal. Oops, there goes my red block. Okay. So there's three things here that will invite you to take on, if it fits for you, like a mantra, like my cadence, like my rhythm. Yeah. So I'd like to draw this on your book, on your plain piece of paper. Now, there's three things to focus on. The first one is tuning in. So when you tune in, where are you tuning into? Yeah. Are you tuning into external noise that's coming through? So as we said before, the media, Instagram, Facebook, socials, all of that. Are you letting all of that in? And this is what I would call head. So are you only deciding from your head about what comes in or what you're tuning into? Or are you tuning into what I would call heart? What I would call heart, you would call heart too maybe. So are you tuning into your head, or are you tuning into your heart? So yes, we do need some tuning into our head. You might not be able to see this, I'm just leaning on my plant. You might do this, you might need to do this. We need to be updated, we need to be informed, but we don't, and another mentor of mine says, tune in, don't buy in. So focus on what are the things that you need to know and what's going to be helpful and valuable for your decision making, and then tune into your heart. What's needed right in this moment? Is it presence? Is it connection? Is it just to be and sit on the couch with each other? Is it actually to be on Zoom with your team and just take a few deep breaths? Is that something that you can do? So tuning in, head or heart. So writing those things down. So the things here would be, you know, the media, socials, other people's opinions potentially, getting together or getting on Zoom and talking to each other about how bad things are. That can be helpful sometimes, but notice how you feel when you leave that conversation. So just being really discerning, that word again, about what you're letting in. Yep. So our heart, what did I write for heart? So what's in my heart? What am I feeling right now? What's my truth? So what's my truth? If you connect and take the time to connect in with your heart, it will tell you what feels right now. Yeah. And also I would put here the boundaries. So whether that's physical boundaries about, this is my workspace, this is my home space. So at work, I'm at the end of the kitchen bench or the one end of the dining room table, or I've got a spare room that I'm going to turn into an office or something like that. Home is everything else but that. Doesn't mean I can't walk into other areas if I'm on the phone or I need to step outside and be on Zoom outside for a change. But just notice where you might establish some boundaries around what's work and what's home so that you can refresh yourself by stepping up and moving away from that space, okay? So tune in. The next one is refresh. So tuning in also is about care about how you feel. Yeah, care about how you feel. Refresh, are you with me? Refresh is about, so the first one is about circumstances. So am I refreshing from circumstances? So am I waiting for the external circumstances to change so I would feel refreshed? As in, when I can go back to the gym, I'm going to feel refreshed? Or when I can go out with friends for a coffee, am I going to feel refreshed then? So are you waiting for the external circumstances to change before you feel refreshed? Yep. So we might need some of nature, we might need some of food, and we might need some hydration. So those would be the external circumstances that we can access right now. Or are we refreshing through our own internal wisdom? Yep. So wisdom, self-talk, self-trust, and self-belief. Self-trust and self-belief. Let me see if there's any questions coming in. I just answered the above, thank you. Okay, what other questions do I have? Where are my other questions? Thank you so much for all of your questions. I've answered yours too, thank you. In a virtual world, feeling or ability to sense is lost, yes. And so that's from Janelle. In a virtual world, so much of the feeling or ability to sense is lost. I wonder if you're feeling me on this Zoom webinar today. I'm wondering if you're feeling my energy and my connection. And I hope that you are. And the reason that you are, if you are, is because I'm connected with myself. I'm having the time of my life here. While all the circumstances are so not what we want them to be, if I'm cultivating what's going on inside, I can give, I can be, I can connect, and I can feel. And we can feel together. It's about what I'm practicing on the inside that allows me to, hopefully you're feeling the connection where you are. So when we're looking at screens so much more, aren't we? And we'll probably need a break from them sometime soon, and hopefully you're doing that through the day as well. But we can feel each other over Zoom. It's about what we feel on the inside that we then allow to connect on the outside. I hope that helps, Janelle. Let me know. What else have I got here? Yes, some people are telling me, yes, they're feeling it. Okay, great. And again, this is not pumping up or motivation or pretending everything's fine. It's certainly not that, or head in the sand. It's about who do I want to be, who do I want to be in the face of these circumstances? Where do I find certainty? I find it within. That's the key, right? Okay, so I've got to keep going. So refresh, what do I want to give you here? Yes, and this is about being responsible for my energy. Yeah? Which is exactly what I just talked about. Being responsible for my energy has me refresh on the inside. So what's my self-talk? What's my self-talk? Have I cultivated self-trust? Self-trust is about developing the ability to keep our promises to ourselves. Yep, that's where we can start to rely on ourselves. Trust is a huge topic, and this is the basis of my work with leaders and teams, and also one-on-one with leaders, and I do a lot of work with women in leadership. Is self-trust is about coming back to self and looking at where we're not keeping our promises to ourselves as a basis. Because usually trust, we go, someone else has to behave differently for me to be able to trust. And that just puts everyone on the hook and just creates a whole lot of codependent relationships, which is what most of us are doing. Yeah, not in this situation. And it's going to come to the surface a lot more through this situation. So self-trust is the basis of trust. If we can do that, then we can choose whether we give our trust away, rather than waiting for someone else to behave before we trust. Now, I know that's probably going to touch a lot of hot points at the moment, and I'm happy to speak about that maybe on our next webinar or webcast that we do. I'm going to ask you about that, whether that's something that might be helpful for you going forward. So, managing your energy. And the last one, so tune in, refresh, and what was my last one? Focus. So focus. Where are you focusing? Are you focusing, this is a huge one, are you focusing on the past, right? Or are you focusing on the future? And you might say, well, what about the present? Aren't you all about the present? Yes, I'm all about the present. The way to access the future that we want to live into. Remember I said before, what's the future you're living into? I hope you can see that. I think you can. If you can't, that's future on that side. The way that we access that is through being in the present. If I can be really present, then I can choose the future I'm living into. If I'm not present, I'm just going to be repeating the past. Because as human beings, beyond the age of 35, we're 95% of programmed. All the conditioning that we've experienced through our lives, especially up between the ages of 0 and 7, we are conditioned by our environment, everything coming in, we're absorbing, making our decisions. We're adults living the life of a child. The decision's made as a child and we don't know it, okay? But when I'm present, I can choose my future. I can choose my future, so that's really important, yeah? Okay, so I hope that's helpful. So the past is focused on the problem, yeah? Or trying to get back to what we had before. There's no getting back to what we had before. A lot of people are asking, when's it going to be? When are we just going to go back to normal? I think we all know that there's going to be a different world outside of, beyond this situation, yeah? And so if I'm past focused or problem focused, there's no space for me to be present and there's no space for me to choose a future that I want to live into. So am I problem focused or past focused? Yeah, or am I possibility? So that's possibility. I love that word. Or am I possibility focused? What's possible? What could be possible if I thought a different way? If I chose my future, if I chose what I focused on, if I became present, if I practiced giving space to my feelings, if I practiced moving into connection with my feelings rather than into judgment of myself or others. Yeah. And so this one is about choosing our direction. Yeah, choosing our direction. All right, so I hope that helps. Let me see questions. Yes. How do I keep team motivated in these uncertain times? So Lucy, I hope this is helping you. And so here's the thing that I want you all to do, or invite you to do this with your team. This is so simple. You've seen how simple this is. Draw 3 things and go, you know what, I learned something today. These are 3 things we're going to focus on. Yeah, we're going to tune in, we're going to refresh, and we're going to focus. And we're going to choose how we do it. Doesn't mean that we do all this. We need a bit of this. We need a bit of head, we need a bit of heart. Doesn't mean in the middle is the perfect either. But it just means know where you are. Where am I on the scale at the moment? Am I really letting too much in today of what's going on outside of me? Do I need to come back into my heart? Is that going to refresh me in this moment? Maybe I could do that at lunchtime, sit out in the sun and take a few deep breaths. That will refresh me. So I'll balance things out a little bit. Same with refreshment. And am I getting enough, nature, and am I getting enough good food, hydration, so on? And actually, am I managing my self-talk? So again, we're not looking to one's better than the other, and we're not looking for perfect balance. We're looking for that dynamic balance for us in any moment or any day. Same with focus. Yes, we need to know what the problems are. Yes, we need to understand and learn from the past. But if I'm choosing to move into the future and the future I'm living into, I will notice what that feels like inside of me. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. Camilla's saying this resonates so much. Thank you so much, Camilla. All right. So, oh my God. Okay, we're nearly done. So, 3 minutes. Okay. So, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to know if this has been helpful for you. I'd love to know in the chat box if you'd like to say, yes, this has been helpful, or whatever comments you've got. I would love to know if there are other topics that you'd like me to address or cover. I'd love to know if you felt like this has been a conversation for you. I would love to know if you feel this would be helpful going forward. We're all looking for ways to do the best that we can and do the best work that we can and to connect and serve. And I don't want to be noise that you don't need. So if you think this might be helpful for you going forward, is it something you want to tap into every Friday morning, once a month, once a fortnight? I'd love to know. Very helpful. Yes, is very helpful, very helpful, very helpful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Lots of very helpful, lots and lots, very helpful. Thank you. Is this something, let me know if there's something that you'd like to have again. Is it a weekly tap in? I was thinking of bringing guests in who are experts in other areas that we might have a conversation and you could ask your questions of them as well. Would that be helpful? Thank you so much. Let's take a few deep breaths. I hope you've taken your notes. I'm hoping that you're going to take a minute now and look at what you've written down and think about what are your actions going forward. My 3 intentions for today were for you to have some new insights and awareness, to have a space just to be for yourself with your cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and to take some new tools and tips. So please roll this out with your team and your family. It's easy, you'll be able to do it. I would love weekly. Thank you. I would love weekly. I would love weekly. Okay, thank you so much. Tune in for more. This would be fantastic. Thank you so much for your feedback. It really is helpful for me. As again, I don't want to be noise. I just want to serve and be helpful, and hopefully it makes a difference to you. And we can connect in a space where we don't know the future going forward, but we do know what we can choose to focus on. So we're about to finish. Thank you so much for being here. I'm honoured by your presence, and I hope you felt me. I've certainly felt you. And I really look forward to seeing you or connecting with you in the future. Stay tuned for I'll post new events going forward. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All the beautiful, lovely notes. It's 8:30. I'm going to let you go. Have a wonderful, wonderful day from the inside out. Sending my love. Bye.